Hello and welcome to this video on market research. By the end of this video, we should be able to distinguish between a product-orientated approach and a market-orientated approach to developing new products. We're also going to look at primary versus secondary market research. And we're also going to look at the concept of product trials. So let's start off. What is a market-orientated approach? Well, a market-orientated approach to new product development is where the needs of the customer are at the center of the decision-making process. So the key bit here is about the needs of the customer. We think about the needs of the customer and we develop a product that then meets those needs. And this should give us a pretty high chance of success that our product is going to be in demand. Some businesses on the other hand, use what's known as a product-orientated approach. And this is not where we consider the needs of the customer, but we look inwards within the business and we look and focus solely on the product itself. So not necessarily worrying about the customer, but we look about the product itself and how it can be made. Now here, this is considered a bit more risky because we're not necessarily just guaranteeing there'll be a demand for the product, but often in the past, the potential rewards for being quite innovative and coming up with a brand new product without thinking about customers, the rewards have been quite significant. Let's make sure that we get both of these definitions down in our notes. They're two important terms in marketing. Right, let's move on and look at what market research is. Market research is the collection, presentation, and analysis of information to inform a business about its market. It allows decisions to be made on a scientific basis rather than intuition. So market research is where a business collects information about its potential customers or suppliers, and it allows businesses to use this information to make scientific kind of results-driven or provable decisions rather than just using a gut feel. So let's make sure we have this one down. So what kind of things do businesses want to research? What kind of information are they looking for? You might want to pause the video now and just have a quick little brainstorm to yourself. What sorts of things would a business research and what kind of information might they look for? Well, businesses will want to collect information about a range of different things. They might want to collect information about the market, so the size of the market, whether it's growing, trends within the market. They'll also want to collect information about their customers. They might want to collect information about whether there are any segments of the larger market, and they will also want to look at perhaps what their competitors are doing. So businesses will undertake research, and there are two broad categories of research that we need to be aware of. The first one is called primary research, and this is data collected firsthand for a specific research purpose. So a purpose has been come into mind for a business, and then they've gone out and collected data specifically to address that. The second type of research is known as secondary research, and that is where the data that already exists and has already been collected is then used for a slightly different purpose. So here the business might want to have a particular area they want to research, and rather than doing first-hand, going out and finding information, they look for something that's already been done and say, can we use that data already? It wasn't done specifically for us, but can we still use it as research? So again, these are two important definitions. Let's make sure we've got them down. So primary market research might be things like surveys. So maybe face-to-face or online or postal. You go out and gather information for a specific purpose. Also focus groups where businesses invite people in and ask them what they think of their products. Similarly, consumer panels. Often businesses will just observe customers using their products and try and use that information to improve their marketing. Often they will give people products to use as a test marketing process and then use that information to further improve the product. So these would be first-hand ways of collecting data, primary research. Let's have a look at some secondary market research sources. So you could have some internal secondary market research like sales figures. They weren't used particularly for this, produced particularly for this purpose, but we can still use them as part of our data. Sometimes you get information from the government, trade associations, so industry organizations can provide information. Sometimes you can get information from your competitors and their marketing materials. And then sometimes there are companies like this one down in the bottom right-hand corner who will produce market research reports, and you might buy them and use that information. It hasn't been collected specifically firsthand for your purpose, but it has been produced and you can use it. Now, most research will involve some element of sampling. You're not going to be able to ask all your potential customers what they think of your product, but you're going to have to take a particular sample. And so sampling involves the gathering of data from a group of respondents, the results of which should be representative of the population as a whole. So if you have the whole market, what you're trying to do is take a sample of people, a smaller group of people that represent, they have the same characteristics of that larger market. And then if you scale your answers up, you should get an indication of what the population as a whole thinks. Now you have to be aware that sometimes we might get bias in our sampling because the sample that we take is not truly representative of the population as a whole. So it's often cheaper and more feasible than surveying the population, but we must remember the risk of bias. Okay, so let's go on to some benefits and drawbacks. Primary market research. Well, benefits of primary market research, it's directly focused on what you want to achieve. You can keep it private, you don't have to share it with anybody, and it can be very detailed, particularly into your customers' views. Any drawbacks? Well, it's normally quite time consuming and costly to obtain because it's doing for your specific purpose. There's a risk of bias and the sampling may not be representative. What about secondary market research? Well, the benefits, it's often free and easy to obtain. You can get a good source of insights into the market. It's normally quick and easy to use. Any of the disadvantages here can quickly become out of date. It's not tailored to your specific purpose or business. And often it's quite expensive to buy specialist reports from market research organizations. Once we've done our research, we can look at the data that we've collected. And the data we've collected normally falls into two categories. The first one is quantitative style research. And this involves collecting data that can be analyzed numerically. So questions that are what we would call closed questions. So how many, how often, who, when, where, we can analyze those answers with numbers. 15 people said this, 20 people said that, and then start to test the data that we've got. So these tend to be based on larger samples and are more statistically valid. They normally come from surveys. So quantitative research, things that we can quantify with numbers. The other type of research is called qualitative research. And this is based on opinions, attitudes, beliefs, and intentions. So we can't apply numbers to it. So questions that start with such, why would you do this, or how would you do that? These are not these are not questions we can apply a number to, and we call these qualitative data. And here we're just trying to aim to understand why customers behave in a certain way, or how they might respond. Focus groups, where people arrive and discuss, and businesses ask their potential customers questions about new products or what they want, are typical sources of qualitative data. So what are the advantages and disadvantages? Quantitative data can be summarized concisely. It's easy to extract meaning, and we can make comparisons easily because that is the nature of numbers and numerical data. Unfortunately, it only shows what consumers do rather than why, and again, it's only really reliable if the sample is big enough and represents the whole population. In terms of qualitative research, it can help a business to understand how its customers think and why customers feel as they do, and can give the business ideas it's not previously considered. Often it can be quite small scale, the feedback that you get, so it's quite likely to be biased. If you've asked 5 people and you're trying to reflect a population of 1 million, it's more expensive to do these sorts of research and difficult to kind of summarize the research. You can't apply numbers to them and say 15 people said this. You say people all said these sorts of different things. Businesses will often use ICT as part of their market research and increasingly. So things like surveys or feedbacks about how they found the service, things like customer reviews and ratings 5 stars. So businesses may use ICT as part of their research. They can also use social media to generate research figures. So they can analyze who's been trending them and who's been retweeting and how many followers they've got on Facebook and the profile of their followers on Facebook. And from this, make conclusions about maybe their target market or how marketing campaigns are going. Businesses often also have their own electronic databases of customers, if they have a subscription or a loyalty card. And from this, they can gather information about what their customers might like, what they typically buy, and that can help them tailor their products to meet their needs. The final thing we need to be aware of is a product trial, the concept of a product trial. So often they will give customers products to try for free to encourage purchases. Test marketing a product like this can help them determine how much demand is likely to be for their product. So in this video, we've looked at product and market orientated approach. We've looked at primary, secondary market research, as well as quantitative and qualitative research, and also the phenomenon of product trials. That's it. Thanks for listening.